Hi guys, and welcome to Boring History Relaxing. Tonight we step into a rain-soaked lane in England, in the year 1846, where the hedges shine black in the dusk. The mud sucks softly at your boots, and a small horse caravan waits beside the road like a wooden lantern with wheels. Inside, there is warmth. Outside, there is rain, tapping on the curved roof and running in thin silver lines down the painted boards. You probably won't survive this with your modern need for dry socks, central heating, and a mattress that does not also serve as daytime furniture. But do try to remain brave, so, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell us where you are listening from, and what your local time is right now. Now, dim the lights and place one cold hand on the caravan step. The first thing you notice is not how charming it looks. That comes later, in paintings, postcards, and suspiciously clean museum displays. The first thing you notice is the smell. Wet horse, wet wool, wet earth, wet wood. The 19th century has many perfumes, few in glass bottles. You pull your collar closer around your throat. The lane is narrow, pressed between hedges and ditches, with puddles reflecting the last dull light of evening. The horse stands patiently in the traces, ears flicking at the rain, its coat darkened along the neck and shoulder. The caravan itself is not yet the bright, carved showman's wagon later generations love to imagine. In 1846, many travelling wagons are plainer, tougher, and built more for survival than display. Still, to you, soaked through and shivering. This one seems almost luxurious because it has a roof. A simple historical fact settles around you in 1846 England. Most ordinary inland travel still moves at the pace of hooves, feet and wheels. Railways are spreading fast, but lanes, carts, pack horses and wagons remain part of daily life. This lane belongs to mud, toll gates, market days, and people who carry their living with them. You set one boot on the wooden step, it bends slightly under your weight, reminding you that everything here has been made, repaired, patched, and trusted again. Your hand finds the door frame. The wood is cold and slick with moisture. A lantern glows inside, golden enough to make the rain beyond it seem colder. Behind you, the horse snorts, as if offering a professional opinion on the weather. The caravan door opens inward with a small complaint from the hinges. Warm air breathes out, carrying smoke, damp cloth, stale straw, iron, tea leaves, and the ghost of whatever was cooked last. It is not the clean warmth of a modern bedroom. It is crowded warmth, earned warmth, trapped by bodies, blankets, and a tiny flame. You climb in carefully. There is a duck of the head, a sideways twist of the shoulder, and a quiet negotiation with every object near your knees. A hanging coat brushes your cheek. A tin cup rattles somewhere. The caravan sways under you, like a small boat in a very muddy harbour. Rain drums overhead in a steady, sleepy pattern. Then you notice one drip falling into a cup near the wall. Comfort, apparently, has terms and conditions. The interior is dim. Your eyes adjust to wood panels stained by smoke and weather. Shelves hold folded cloth, a loaf wrapped in linen, a small kettle, a patched basket, a knife, a coil of cord and tools that look as if they have solved problems in every county nearby. Along one side, a bench waits beneath blankets. Along another, storage boxes do double duty as seats. Everything has a place because there is no space for decoration. A quirky little tidbit clings to this world like mud to a wheel. Some travelling families and roadside workers are said to have kept charms. Bits of red thread, lucky horseshoe nails, or small protective objects tucked into wagons or clothing. Not always because every old story was believed, but because the road is lonely and a charm weighs less than fear. Is that superstition, habit, or just sensible emotional luggage? Scholars still debate how much everyday folk belief shaped practical choices among travelling people, because official records usually cared more about taxes and arrests than about quiet things under pillows. You sit on the bench, and the wood presses firmly through the blanket beneath you. There is no deep cushion, no soft collapse, no luxurious sigh. Your body supplies the sigh, your knees nearly touch a box, your elbow finds the wall. If another person moves, you feel the shift in the whole structure. Privacy is not exactly absent, but it is thin as candle smoke. Outside, the rain thickens, it slides from the roof in uneven threads, patters into puddles and taps against the small window. You hear the horse stamp once, leather creaks. The road is not empty, but it is not friendly either. A person travelling by caravan in this period may be a hawker, tinker, grinder, basket maker, show worker, seasonal labourer, or part of a family whose life does not fit neatly into settled village expectations. The road offers movement. It also invites suspicion. You rub your hands near the small source of warmth. Perhaps there is a brazier used outside, perhaps a little iron stove in a better-fitted wagon. Perhaps only a lantern and wrapped stones warmed earlier by the fire. Historians still argue whether surviving accounts exaggerate the hardship of mobile lives because many were written by outsiders who already disliked people on the road. That is the trouble with history, isn't it? Still, hardship does not need much exaggerating tonight. Your socks are damp, your boots are heavy, your shoulders ache from the day. The blanket smells faintly of wool grease and smoke, which is not unpleasant once you surrender to it. Somewhere near your feet, a little draught creeps through a gap and strokes your ankle with the icy delicacy of a ghost who has poor manners. Yet, inside this small wooden room, the world narrows in a calming way. The rain becomes a curtain. The road becomes a rumour. The horse, with its slow breathing outside, becomes part of the house. The caravan gives you almost nothing extra, but it gives you separation from the wet night. And sometimes that is the whole definition of home. You lean back as much as the wall allows. A drop strikes the cup again. Plink. Then another. Plink. The sound is strangely peaceful. A tiny clock measuring the patience of the roof. The lantern flame trembles. The caravan rocks slightly when the horse shifts outside, and the whole room answers with little creaks. This is your first evening inside the 1846 horse caravan. It is damp, cramped, smoky, practical, and alive with small inconveniences, but it is also warm enough, safe enough, yours enough for tonight. And as the rain thickens over the English lane, you begin to let the outside fall away, one soft drop at a time. The lane does not care that you are tired. It keeps shining in the rain beyond the little window. A narrow ribbon of mud and reflected sky, leading somewhere and nowhere at once. You sit inside the caravan, shoulders slowly loosening, and begin to understand that this wheeled room is not simply a picturesque shelter. It is a livelihood with hinges, a bed with axles, a workplace that must be pulled uphill by a patient animal who has not read any romantic novels about freedom. In 1846, the roads of England carry a whole moving population that rarely appears in grand history books. There are people walking to harvest work, men with barrows, women carrying bundles, peddlers with boxes, knife grinders, umbrella menders, chair bottomers, tinkers, show people, drovers, chimney sweeps, and families following fairs, markets, and seasonal need. Some sleep in barns when allowed. Some in lodging houses when coins permit, some under hedges when luck has gone off to warm itself elsewhere. A horse caravan, even a modest one, is a major possession, almost a tiny estate on wheels. You feel that truth as your thin fingers rest on the rough wooden bench. This is not a toy. Every board represents labour. Every iron fitting costs money. Every repair means a decision made between food, fodder, rent for a pitch, and whatever else the road demands. If the caravan breaks, Your body becomes the caravan. If the horse fails, the road suddenly grows longer by several centuries. Outside, the horse lowers its head toward a damp nosebag, chewing with calm seriousness. The sound is slow, moist, and steady. It is the sound of transport before engines. A mainstream historical fact sits beside you in the dimness by the mid-19th century. Railways are expanding rapidly across Britain, yet many rural communities and small traders still depend on horses, carts, and wagons for everyday movement. The railway can rush goods and passengers between towns, but it does not stop at every hedge, every scattered cottage, every farm lane, every green where someone might need a pan mended or a ribbon bought. So you travel by road, you arrive where rails do not. You follow rumour, weather, fair days, hiring days, and the old geography of need. A village may want someone who can sharpen knives, a farm may need extra hands. A market town may offer customers for ribbons, pins, pots, songs, medicines, cheap prints, or repairs. You do not have a shop front. You have a door that opens wherever the wheels stop. And, of course, people judge a door that moves. The settled world likes people to remain findable. Parish officers prefer names in registers, homes with hearths, wages that can be counted, and families that can be placed neatly under a roof. A caravan family troubles that tidy imagination. Are you poor or independent, skilled or suspicious, local or foreign, useful or unwanted? The answer may change from one village to the next, and sometimes from 1 hour to the next, depending on whether someone's kettle needs mending. You hear rain tapping at the roof and imagine the day that brought you here. Perhaps you began near a market town, wheels sucking out of a churned yard before dawn. Perhaps you sold small goods from a box, or helped repair farm tools, or followed a fair where music, animals, gingerbread, cheap amusements, and muddy boots gathered in one noisy field. The caravan moved slowly, swaying behind the horse. Children, if there were children, walked when the road climbed, rode when the weather turned ugly, and learned very early that complaining does not flatten hills. There is a quirky tidbit in the world of travelling trade that almost feels like something invented by a sleepy storyteller, except it has the odd ring of truth. In some parts of Britain, wandering sellers used distinctive cries or sing-song calls so people could recognise their goods before seeing them. A caller for pots, chairs, lace, or small repairs might become part of the soundscape of a lane, like a human bell. Imagine trying that now outside a supermarket. You would probably be removed by a polite teenager in a branded fleece. Yet in your world, sound is advertising. The creak of wheels, the jingle of harness, the call at a gate, the bark of a dog, the answering voice from a cottage doorway. All of it belongs to the business of motion. You do not simply travel between work. Travel is work. Moving is how you become visible. Historians still argue whether roadside mobility in the 1840s should be understood mainly as poverty, as independence, as exclusion, or as a strategy that blends all three. The neat answer would be comforting, which is how we know history refuses to give it. Some travellers are pushed by hardship, some choose movement because their skills fit it, some inherit roots and trades from parents and grandparents, some move because the settled world has never made much space for them. Many do several of these things at once, because human lives are inconsiderate like that. Inside the caravan, a coat drips slowly from a peg. A little thread of water runs from its hem and darkens the floorboards. You watch it travel along a groove worn by years of boots. This room has known lanes in spring, chalk roads in summer, frozen ruts in winter, an autumn mud thick enough to make a wheel seem personally offended. It has known marketplaces where someone laughs and pays cash, and villages where doors close one by one. The caravan is also a compromise between movement and belongings. You cannot carry a dresser, a feather bed, a chest of china, and 3 unnecessary chairs named after relatives. You carry what earns, warms, feeds, repairs, and comforts. Pots nest inside pots, blankets roll tight, tools hang from nails, food is measured carefully, even memory must be compact. A ribbon, a pipe, a prayer book, a charm, a child's wooden toy, perhaps one cracked cup that nobody throws away because it belonged to someone missed. Your livelihood may depend on the landscape itself. The English countryside in 1846 is not a timeless green dream. It is worked, owned, enclosed, rented, taxed, fenced, watched, and changing. Enclosure has altered access to common land in many places over the previous century, shaping where poor people can graze animals, gather fuel, or stop without trouble. The Industrial Revolution has pulled many lives toward towns, but rural England still hums with small exchanges, seasonal hiring, and old habits under new pressures. So your horse caravan stands at a crossing of worlds. Old road, new railway, rural craft, industrial goods, independent movement. Official suspicion, warm interior. Wet night. It is easy, from a modern bed, to admire the freedom. It is harder to admire it when the wheel rim is cracked. The horse needs oats, rain has ruined your kindling, and the next parish may decide your freedom looks like trespass. Still, there is something steadying about it. You know the horse is breathing, you know where each cup hangs, you know how the caravan leans on a slope, you know which box holds tools and which blanket smells least of smoke. The road may not welcome you, but the caravan remembers you. The rain softens for a moment, becoming mist against the window. Somewhere far down the lane, a dog barks twice, then gives up the matter. You picture tomorrow's route, the slow lift of morning, the horse stepping forward, wheels turning, the room behind you rearranged back into a travelling shop, home and refuge. For now, the lane waits in darkness, your livelihood sleeps on four wheels. And the road, with all its mud and judgment, lies just outside the door. The rain continues to whisper above you, but now you begin to notice the room itself. At first, the caravan was simply a place where you escaped the weather, a roof, four walls, somewhere to stop your teeth from complaining about the cold. But as your eyes adjust to the dim lantern glow, the little details appear one by one, and the wooden box around you becomes something more complicated. It is a home designed by necessity. You run your hand along the interior wall. The timber is not perfectly smooth, carries marks from years of use, tiny scratches, darkened patches, and places where hands have rested while people climbed in and out after long days on the road. Smoke has worked its way into the grain, giving the wood a deep, warm colour. The smell is everywhere: old smoke, damp wool, leather, tea, horsehair, and yesterday's cooking all mixed together into a scent that would be impossible to bottle, although someone in the future would probably try and call it something like rustic Victorian evening. You would probably laugh. The caravan is not large. In fact, by modern standards, it is astonishingly small. You cannot spread your arms without meeting something important. A shelf, a hook, a hanging coat, a wooden edge. Every inch has a purpose. There is no empty corner waiting for decoration. There is no hallway leading to another room. There is no separate space for sleeping, eating, working, storing, and relaxing. All those activities must politely share the same few feet. You look around and begin to understand the cleverness behind the arrangement. A shelf near the wall holds items that need to be reached quickly. A kettle sits where it can be lifted without knocking over half the room. Cloth bundles are tucked into spaces that would otherwise be wasted. Tools hang where a hand can find them in poor light. Boxes become seats. Seats become beds. Beds become storage areas during the day. The caravan changes its identity depending on the hour. Morning might find it a workshop, afternoon might turn it into a tiny shop, evening transforms it into a dining room, night makes it a bedroom. The walls do not move, but the purpose of the space does. A mainstream historical fact settles into the quiet around you. Many 19th century working families lived with far fewer separate rooms than people in wealthier homes. Privacy was often limited, and furniture was frequently multifunctional because space and money were precious. The idea of a separate bedroom, sitting room, office, and storage area was a luxury rather than a universal expectation. You notice this especially when you imagine sleeping here. The bench beneath you is not only a bench, it is waiting to become part of the night's arrangement. The boxes nearby are not merely containers, they are support, storage, and sometimes furniture. The caravan does not waste anything because waste is expensive. Outside, the horse shifts its weight, causing a gentle movement beneath your feet. The whole structure responds. A small creak rises from the wheels, another answers from the roof. The caravan seems almost alive, like an old companion clearing its throat before speaking. You place a hand on the wall and feel the faint vibration. The horse is not just pulling your home. The horse is part of your home. Every movement, every turn, every sudden stop will travel through this wooden shell. When the animal walks, you feel the rhythm. When it rests, the silence changes. The people who build and maintain these caravans learn to work with limited materials. A broken hinge cannot simply be ignored. A leaking roof cannot wait for a convenient weekend. A damaged wheel can decide whether the next journey happens at all. Repairs become part of daily life. The tools hanging nearby tell that story. A hammer, a knife, cord, small pieces of metal, bits of wood saved because they might become useful later. To modernize, keeping every spare piece can look like clutter. To someone living on the road, it is wisdom. The useless object today might become tomorrow's solution. There is a curious little detail hidden in the history of travelling. Craftspeople, some artisans developed extremely specialized skills that were passed through families or communities, with knowledge learned by watching rather than reading. A child might understand the shape of a repair, the sound of a tool, or the quality of a material simply because they had seen it hundreds of times. Experience was a kind of education carried in the hands. You imagine someone sitting exactly where you are now, years earlier, repairing a broken handle by lantern light while rain fell outside. Perhaps someone hummed quietly. Perhaps someone complained about the weather. Perhaps someone burned dinner and pretended it was meant to taste that way. History is often filled with kings and battles, but most human evenings probably looked more like this. Someone fixing something, someone waiting, someone trying to stay warm. The blanket beside you is rough but comforting. Wool holds warmth well, even when it carries the memory of smoke and travel. You lift it slightly and notice the weight. This is not the soft, factory-made bedding of the modern world. It is practical, durable, and meant to survive. That durability matters because the road is demanding. A travelling household cannot replace everything whenever something wears out. Clothing is patched, blankets are repaired, containers are reused, small possessions are valued because they have already proven themselves. Historians still debate whether people living mobile lives in this period experienced their limited possessions mainly as hardship or whether they valued the freedom that came from owning fewer things. The answer is probably complicated. A person can be tired of carrying a heavy bundle and still love the fact that nobody can easily take their whole life away. You glance toward the small window. The outside world has almost disappeared behind rain. The village, the fields, and the road have become shadows. Inside, the caravan feels like a little island. There is comfort in knowing where everything belongs. The cup hangs there, the coat rests there, the blanket folds there, the tools wait there. In a world where weather can change plans and strangers can judge you quickly, familiar objects offer a kind of quiet friendship. You begin to notice the sounds of the interior. The tiny movements of wood as it cools, the soft rustle of fabric, the occasional rattle of something hanging from a hook, the gentle breathing of the horse beyond the wall. The rain no longer feels like an enemy pressing against you. It becomes a background rhythm. This is the strange beauty of the caravan. It does not defeat the weather. It does not erase discomfort. It simply creates a small boundary between you and the world outside. The roof leaks perhaps, the floor is hard, the room is crowded. Yet after a long day on the road, these things matter less than the simple fact that the door closes. You sit quietly beneath the lantern glow, surrounded by wood that remembers countless journeys. The caravan has become more than transport. It is a workshop, a cupboard, a dining space, and a sleeping place waiting for night to arrive fully. Every object around you has earned its position. Every corner has a story. And as the rain settles into its steady rhythm, you begin to understand that this tiny interior is not small because it lacks importance. It is small because it has been carefully shaped around survival. The lantern burns a little lower as the rain settles into the evening, and your attention turns toward the practical question that has followed every traveller since humans first started carrying their belongings along roads. What will you eat? The caravan may be a bedroom waiting to happen, a workshop on wheels, and a shelter from the weather, but it is also a tiny kitchen, somewhere inside these wooden walls. Meals must be prepared, cups must be filled, and hungry people must somehow be satisfied after a long day of walking, selling, repairing, lifting and travelling. You look around again, and the clever arrangement becomes even clearer. A small kettle is not simply a kettle, it is a promise of warmth. A pot is not just a pot, it is the difference between an empty stomach and a quiet evening. A loaf of bread wrapped carefully in a cloth represents planning, because there may not be a bakery waiting conveniently beside every muddy lane. The smell of food begins to mix with the older scents of the caravan. Perhaps there is bread warmed near the fire. Perhaps a little stew is being prepared with whatever vegetables, grains, or scraps are available. Perhaps tea leaves are waiting to turn hot water into something comforting after a cold day. The meal is not grand, but it does not need to be after hours outdoors. Even a simple bowl can feel like a feast. You watch the small movements involved in preparing food. There is no large kitchen table, no collection of shining appliances, no endless supply of clean plates. Every action must be carefully arranged. Someone shifts a box to create a surface. Someone steadies a cup as the caravan moves slightly. Someone protects the flame from the occasional draft. Cooking here is a dance performed in a room that refuses to stand still. A well-known detail from the period is that many working-class families in 19th century Britain relied heavily on inexpensive, filling foods such as bread, potatoes, grains, and simple stews. Meat was available to many people only occasionally, depending on income and circumstances. A warm meal was often less about variety and more about making sure everyone had enough energy for another demanding day. You hold the cup between your hands and feel the heat travel slowly into your fingers. The warmth is almost surprising. After a day of damp roads and cold air, a simple drink becomes something close to a luxury. Tea itself carries an interesting story. By the 1840s, tea had become deeply woven into British daily life. Though quality and quantity varied greatly between social groups, wealthier households might have enjoyed more expensive varieties and elaborate rituals, while poorer families often stretched supplies carefully. A cup of tea was not just a drink, it was a pause, a comfort, and sometimes a small moment of normality in a difficult routine. The caravan sways gently while you eat. The motion changes the experience completely. A meal on solid ground feels ordinary. A meal inside a moving wooden room feels like a small achievement. Every spoonful requires attention. Every cup requires balance. The floor may tilt. The horse may shift outside. The rain may suddenly strike harder against the roof, making everyone pause for a moment and listen. There is something strangely peaceful about it. The world outside is large and uncertain, but inside this small space there is a clear order. Food is prepared. The horse is fed, clothes are dried, tools are placed away. The day slowly closes. A curious little custom from the time appears in the way people treated small kitchen objects. Many travelling households valued simple containers, cups, and utensils not only because they were useful, but because familiar objects created a sense of home wherever the wheels stopped. A particular mug, spoon, or paw could become connected with memories of journeys, people, and places. It was not expensive, but it was known. You look at the ordinary items around you and understand that possessions do not need to be valuable to matter. A cracked cup may have held tea during 100 rainy evenings. A battered pot may have cooked meals beside countless roads. A blanket may have covered generations of tired travellers. The value is not in the object itself, it is in the collection of moments attached to it. Of course, preparing food in such a small space brings challenges. Smoke can become trapped. Rain can make fuel difficult to keep dry. A careless movement can spill a drink or ruin a meal. The difference between a comfortable evening and an unpleasant one may come down to a handful of dry wood, a properly covered pot, or someone remembering where the matches were stored. And perhaps that's why these small routines become so important. When life is uncertain, repeated actions create stability. You might complain about the cramped conditions, you might wish for a larger room, a softer chair, or a kitchen where you can move without bumping into everything. Fair enough, the Caravan does not offer luxury, it offers efficiency. It asks you to cooperate with it. Researchers continue to discuss whether travelling communities in 19th century Britain should be viewed mainly through the lens of hardship or whether their adaptability deserves more attention. Modern observers sometimes romanticise life on the road, while older accounts often focused heavily on poverty and disorder. The reality sits somewhere between those extremes. People could struggle and still create meaningful routines. They could lack comfort and still feel pride in their skills. You finish the meal slowly, listening to the sounds around you. The rain continues. The horse breathes steadily. The wooden walls creak whenever the wind pushes against them. Someone adjusts a blanket. Someone places a cup safely away from a careless elbow. The evening meal is not just about hunger. It marks the transition from movement to rest. During the day, the road controls your life. Weather decides your pace, customers decide your income, the condition of the wheels decides your progress. But here, for a short while, you reclaim a little control. You decide where the cup goes, you decide when the meal ends. You decide when the blankets are pulled closer. The Caravan may be small, but it gives you a boundary between the demands of the outside world and the quiet of the night. The last traces of steam rise from the cup. The lantern flickers softly. The food has disappeared. The dishes are put aside and the room slowly returns to its nighttime shape. The bench waits. The blankets wait. The horse rests outside, and as you settle deeper into the warmth, you realise that supper in this 1846 horse caravan is not remembered because it was impressive. It is remembered because it was ordinary. A simple meal, eaten while rain fell outside, became one more small victory over cold, distance and uncertainty. The meal is finished, but the rain has not finished with you. It continues its steady conversation with the roof, tapping, dripping, and sliding over the wooden curves of the caravan. The sound is almost soothing now, but you know better than to trust it completely. Rain, in 1846 England, is not just scenery. It is a practical problem with 1,000 tiny consequences. It changes roads, delays journeys, dampens supplies, and finds every weak point in clothing, boots, blankets, and roofs. You glance around the caravan and realise that staying dry is not a single task. It is a constant negotiation. The first challenge is your clothing. Outside, wet fabric quickly becomes heavy fabric. A coat that protects you from rain also holds the memory of every drop it has collected. Wool is useful because it can still provide warmth when slightly damp. But there is a difference between slightly damp and completely miserable. You hang your coat carefully, hoping the small amount of warmth inside the caravan will slowly pull the moisture away. The sleeves drip onto the floor. The floor does not complain. It has seen worse. A simple fact from everyday 19th century life is that clothing was often repaired and reused far longer than many modern garments. Fabric was valuable, and families frequently patched, altered, and adapted what they owned rather than replacing items quickly. A torn coat was not automatically rubbish, it was a problem to solve. You examine the edges of your own clothing and notice the evidence of this mindset everywhere. A stitched repair, a reinforced seam, a piece of fabric that does not quite match the original. These small signs do not mean something has failed. They show that someone cared enough to keep it useful. The same philosophy applies to the caravan itself. The roof is your first defense against the weather, but it is not a magical barrier. Rain finds cracks, wind pushes through gaps, damp air settles into wood. The people who live here must constantly maintain their shelter. A loose board, a damaged covering, or a worn section of canvas can become a serious issue when the sky decides to open. You imagine the hands that have worked on this caravan before you. Someone replacing a hinge, someone sealing a gap, someone tightening a wheel fitting, someone crawling onto the roof in unpleasant weather, because waiting for sunshine is not always an option. The road rarely provides ideal conditions. Outside, the horse stands in the rain with the patience of an animal that understands bad weather is simply part of the arrangement. Its harness needs attention too. Leather absorbs moisture and can weaken if neglected. Straps must be checked. Buckles must be cleaned. Equipment that carries your livelihood cannot simply be thrown aside at the end of the day. A curious little detail from roadside life is that travellers often developed careful habits for protecting small supplies from damp. Cloth wrapping, oiling, storing items above the floor, and keeping certain materials close to the body were all simple ways to protect valuable belongings. A dry piece of paper, a working tool, or a small amount of food could matter greatly after several wet days. Imagine the importance of a dry match or a dry bundle of kindling. Today, a forgotten lighter is an annoyance in this world. The difference between dry and wet fuel could decide whether the evening felt comfortable or exhausting. You look toward the corner where supplies are stored. Everything has to be arranged with weather in mind. Bread cannot sit where water may reach it. Blankets cannot be left exposed. Tools cannot be allowed to rust. A caravan is a moving puzzle where every object must survive vibration. Rain, mud, and occasional chaos, and there is plenty of chaos available. A wheel may sink into a muddy patch. A sudden storm may arrive while you are packing. A roadside stop that looked suitable in daylight may become a puddle disaster after dark. The countryside may appear peaceful from a distance, but living within it means dealing with every uncomfortable detail. The romantic image of travelling through green fields has its missing pieces. The green fields exist because there is rain. The beautiful hedges exist because people work around them. The quiet lanes exist, but they are often narrow, uneven, and difficult after heavy weather. Researchers continue to examine how ordinary travellers experienced weather and mobility in the 19th century, especially because written records often preserve the voices of officials, employers, and observers rather than the everyday people who dealt with wet roads themselves. The question remains how much hardship went unrecorded because it was simply considered normal. Inside the caravan, you begin to understand that normal does not mean easy. You move a blanket away from the dampest wall, you adjust the position of a bag, you place a cup beneath a small drip. None of these actions are dramatic. Nobody writes songs about moving a leaking container 3 inches to the left. Yet these small decisions are what make survival possible. The people who lived this way became experts in noticing details. A smell of damp wood could warn of a problem. A strange sound from a wheel could prevent a breakdown. A change in the horse's behaviour could reveal discomfort before trouble arrived. The entire household becomes a system of observation. You listen to the rain differently now. Earlier, it was simply the weather outside. Now you hear patterns, a heavy section against the roof, a softer section against the side, a drip that sounds harmless but should be watched. The caravan teaches you attention because ignoring small problems allows them to become larger ones. The lantern casts a warm circle across the interior. Within that small glow, your wet clothes slowly begin to dry. The air remains smoky, the floor remains hard, the space remains crowded. But there is progress. Dryness arrives slowly. First, your hands stop feeling cold. Then your coat becomes less heavy. Then the blanket begins to feel warmer instead of merely available. Comfort does not arrive suddenly here, it builds piece by piece. That may be one of the strangest differences between this evening and a modern one. Today, warmth often appears with the turn of a switch here. Warmth is something you create through patience and effort. You earn it. The rain outside continues, but it no longer feels like an enemy. It is simply part of the world you have chosen, or inherited, or been forced to navigate. The caravan cannot stop the storm, it can only give you a place to wait. And perhaps that is enough. As the night deepens, you settle closer to the lantern and listen to the familiar sounds around you. The horse shifts, the wood creaks, the rain falls, your damp clothing hangs nearby, slowly surrendering its moisture. Tomorrow, the road will still be muddy, the sky may still be grey, the work will still need doing, but tonight, inside this small wooden shelter, you have managed the oldest challenge of all. You have stayed warm enough. You have stayed dry enough. You have made a home where the weather expected only a road. The rain has softened now, but the horse outside remains part of the evening's quiet rhythm. You can hear the occasional movement of hooves against the wet ground, the gentle shift of harness leather, and the slow breath of an animal that has spent the day doing the hardest work of all. Before you can truly rest, the horse must rest too. The caravan may feel like your shelter, but without the horse it is only a small wooden room sitting beside a road. The animal is the reason you can move from village to village, market to market, and fair to fair. The horse is transport, companion, and essential equipment all at once. You step carefully outside for a moment, pulling your coat around yourself as the damp air reaches your face again. The contrast is immediate. Inside, there was smoke, warmth, and trapped comfort. Outside, there is cold rain, dark fields, and the sharp smell of wet earth. The horse turns its head toward you, ears lifting slightly, as if checking whether you have finally remembered the most important member of the travelling household. You offer a quiet greeting. The horse does not respond with great excitement. It simply looks at you with the calm expression of an animal that has seen many humans make complicated plans while knowing that tomorrow will still require walking. You smile because, honestly, the horse has a point. Caring for the animal is not an optional extra. It is part of maintaining your entire way of life. The harness must be checked, the straps must sit correctly, the horse must be fair, watered and allowed to recover. A tired or injured horse means more than inconvenience. It can mean lost income, delayed travel, and serious uncertainty. A well-established detail from the period is that horses remained central to transport and agriculture in 19th century Britain. Even as railways expanded, horses carried people, pulled goods, worked farms, and powered countless everyday activities. The modern world was arriving quickly, but the old world of muscle, leather, and hoofbeats was still everywhere. You run a hand along the harness, checking the familiar pieces. The leather is damp from the weather. The metal fittings are cold against your fingers. Every buckle and strap represents careful craftsmanship because equipment failure on the road is never a small matter. The horse lowers its head and breathes heavily, sending a small cloud of warmth into the night air. There is something peaceful about the sound. The day has been long, but this moment is simple. Human and animal standing together beside a wooden caravan while rain falls over the countryside. It is easy to forget how much knowledge was required to care for working animals. A person living with horses needed to understand signs of discomfort, changes in appetite, unusual behavior, and the effects of weather. They learned by experience. They noticed small changes because small changes could become serious problems. A curious little practice connected to working horses was the use of small protective customs and beliefs around animals. Some owners kept lucky objects, decorated harness pieces, or followed traditional habits they believed would keep horses safe during travel. Whether these practices had practical purpose, emotional comfort, or simple tradition, they reveal how deeply animals were woven into daily life. The horse was not just a machine before machines. It had a personality, it had preferences, it had moods. A traveller might know which horse disliked muddy lanes, which one became nervous near loud crowds, and which one could be trusted to stand quietly while a market stall was being arranged. You look back toward the caravan and imagine the partnership required between the two. The horse provides movement, the human provides care, neither succeeds alone. There is a certain humility in that relationship. You cannot rush a horse because you are impatient. You cannot ignore hunger because your schedule is busy. You cannot treat the animal as an object and expect reliable companionship. The road teaches patience. The same patience appears in every part of caravan life. Wheels turn slowly, meals take time, clothes dry slowly. Journeys are measured by daylight and weather rather than clocks and schedules. Experts continue to discuss how travelling communities understood their relationship with horses, particularly because written records often describe animals through economic value rather than emotional connection. Were horses mainly viewed as valuable working possessions, or were they also considered trusted companions within travelling households? The answer likely depends on the person, the circumstances, and the bond built over years. You return inside and close the door, but the horse does not disappear from your thoughts. The sound of its breathing comes through the wall. The caravan is never completely separate from the animal that makes it possible. You hear the occasional scrape of a hoof, a gentle movement of the harness, a quiet sound from the nosebag as the horse finishes eating. These noises become part of the bedtime atmosphere. A modern listener might find it strange to sleep beside such sounds. Yet there is comfort in them. The horse is proof that you are not alone beside the road. Another living creature is sharing the same night, also waiting for morning. You imagine the horse's perspective. It has followed the road through heat, wind, mud, and rain. It has learned familiar routes. It knows the rhythm of stopping and starting. It knows when the harness appears, when the journey begins, and when the day's work is finished. Perhaps it even knows the caravan itself. Animals recognize familiar places, the smell of the wood, the feel of the harness, the voices of the people around them. The caravan is not just your home, it is part of the horse's world too. Back inside, you pull the blanket closer. The lantern flickers softly. The rain has become quieter. The horse stands outside in the darkness, resting after carrying you through another day. There is a lesson hidden in this simple routine. The past was not moved only by famous people, grand inventions, or dramatic events. It was also carried forward by countless ordinary partnerships between humans and animals. A person walking beside a horse, a worker repairing a harness, a family preparing feed before sleep, a traveller checking the straps one more time before closing the door. These moments rarely appear in grand stories, but they built everyday history. The caravan settles, the horse settles, the road settles for tonight. There is nowhere else you need to be. The wheels are still, the tools are quiet. The animal that carries your world has finally stopped moving, and as you listen to that steady breathing outside the wall, the little wooden caravan feels less like a vehicle and more like a shared shelter, holding two kinds of travellers together until morning arrives. The horse is resting now, the rain has become a softer rhythm, and the caravan begins its final transformation of the day. A place that was once a travelling workshop and eating space must now become a bedroom. This is one of the most remarkable things about life inside a horse caravan. The room does not change size. The walls do not move outward. The ceiling does not rise higher. Yet, with a little effort and a great deal of experience. The same small space becomes something entirely different. You begin preparing for sleep. The first task is making room. Items that were useful during the day must be shifted into their nighttime positions. Tools are secured. Cups are moved. Loose objects are placed somewhere they cannot roll away when the caravan settles. Every movement is deliberate because one careless decision can leave you searching through darkness for something important. There is no spare corner here. A modern bedroom often begins with the assumption that sleeping is the main purpose of the room. A bed waits for you. Blankets are already arranged. The space exists for rest. In the caravan, sleep must be created. The bedroom is built every evening and taken apart every morning. You lift the blankets from where they were stored and feel their weight. They are not decorative. They are practical companions against cold nights and damp mornings. Wool has its advantages. It holds warmth, lasts a long time, and can survive hard use. It also carries the memories of travel, smoke, weather, and countless nights beside roads. You spread the bedding carefully over the available space. The bench beneath you becomes part of the sleeping arrangement. Storage boxes may become supports. Rolled blankets may become pillows. The shape is not perfect, but perfection is not the goal. The goal is comfort enough to close your eyes after a demanding day. A significant feature of 19th century working life was that many households used furniture designed for multiple purposes. Chairs could become beds, tables could become workspaces, and storage could be built into everyday objects because living space was often limited. The idea of a room having only one function belonged more often to people with greater wealth and more space. You notice how much thought has gone into this tiny interior. Whoever designed this caravan understood that every inch mattered. A place to sit during the day becomes a place to sleep at night. A shelf that stores supplies keeps them safe while also leaving the floor clear. A hook holding clothing prevents precious garments from becoming damp piles on the ground. The caravan is not spacious, but it is intelligent. You settle down slowly, testing the arrangement. The wooden surface is firm beneath the blankets. Your body notices every unfamiliar angle. There is no sinking into a deep mattress. There is no dramatic moment where comfort swallows you completely. Instead, comfort arrives gradually. Your shoulders relax first, then your hands stop searching for warmth. Then your mind begins to accept that the day is finished. A small curious custom connected to sleeping arrangements in earlier centuries was the use of personal bedding items that travelled with families, including blankets, quilts, and coverings that carried both practical and emotional value. A familiar blanket could mean safety because it had travelled through difficult seasons and provided comfort in unfamiliar places. It was not merely fabric, it was a piece of continuity. You can understand that feeling tonight. The caravan may stop beside a new lane tomorrow. The faces outside the door may be unfamiliar. The weather may change. The work may be uncertain. But this blanket has been here before. These walls have held against storms before. This sleeping place has been prepared many times. There is reassurance in repetition. Of course, sharing such a small space creates its own challenges. Privacy is limited. Sounds travel easily. Every cough, movement, and conversation becomes part of the room. If a family travels together, sleeping arrangements require patience and cooperation. Children, adults, and sometimes animals all influence the rhythm of the night. The idea of personal space has changed greatly over time. What feels crowded to you now may have felt normal to people accustomed to shared rooms and close family living. That does not mean everyone enjoyed it. It simply means people adapt to the conditions around them. The question of how travellers experienced privacy and comfort remains discussed among historians because surviving evidence often comes from outsiders describing caravan life, rather than from the people sleeping inside those spaces themselves. A wealthy observer may notice the lack of space. A traveller may notice the security of having a roof, tools, supplies, and a familiar place to rest. Both views can exist together. You adjust the blanket near your shoulders and listen. The sounds of the caravan have changed again. During the day, it was full of activity. Cups moved, tools shifted, doors opened, voices filled the air. Now, every sound feels larger. The gentle creak of the wood becomes noticeable. The rain against the roof becomes a kind of music. The horse breathing outside becomes a steady companion. You realize that sleep here requires trust. Here, you trust the roof not to fail. You trust the horse to remain calm. You trust the people around you. You trust that morning will arrive and the routines will begin again. There is something deeply human about that. For all the differences between 1846 and today, the basic desire remains familiar. After a long day, people want somewhere safe to rest. They want warmth. They want the reassurance of familiar objects nearby. They want a small corner of the world where they can stop carrying everything for a while. The caravan provides that corner. Not perfectly, not comfortably by modern standards, but faithfully. The lantern burns lower. Shadows soften along the wooden walls. The blankets hold the warmth collected from the evening. The rain outside continues its gentle pattern, no longer demanding attention. You lie still and feel the strange mixture of sensations around you. The hard surface beneath you, the soft blanket above you, the smell of smoke in the wood, the distant movement of the horse. The knowledge that tomorrow will bring another road. For now, though, the road can wait. The caravan has become a bedroom, and the tools are quiet, the dishes are still, the horse is resting. The world beyond the door has grown dark and distant. And in this small space, built from patience, practicality, and countless clever adjustments, you finally begin to drift towards sleep. You're almost asleep when you realize the caravan has never truly become silent. It only changes its voice. During the day, the sounds of travel fill your world, wheels turning, hooves striking the road, voices calling from gates and market stalls, tools tapping against wood and metal, conversations rising and fading as you move through different places. But at night, every small sound becomes clearer. The wooden walls seem to gather the outside world and bring it closer. Rain brushes against the roof. Water runs from the edges of the caravan and drops into the mud below. The horse shifts its weight occasionally, causing a soft movement that travels through the entire structure. The road, even when empty, seems to have its own quiet language. You lie beneath the blanket and listen. For a moment, you imagine that a modern person dropped into this night would struggle with the amount of information coming through their ears. No humming machines, no distant traffic, no electric lights glowing beyond curtains, no constant background noise created by factories, engines, and devices. Instead, you hear the countryside breathing. A notable feature of rural life in 19th century Britain was that darkness arrived with far fewer artificial lights than people experience today. Outside larger towns and cities, nights were often genuinely dark, with only moonlight, candles, lanterns, fires, and occasional distant lights breaking the shadows. The absence of modern illumination changed how people experience both travel and rest. The darkness outside the caravan feels enormous. You can hear the rain, but you cannot see exactly where it falls. You can hear movement, but you cannot always identify its source. The hedge beside the road becomes a hidden world. The field beyond it disappears completely. The lane that seemed familiar in daylight now feels like a narrow path through a much larger landscape. Yet the sounds are not only unsettling, are comforting. The horse breathes steadily nearby. The rhythm is slow and dependable. You recognize that sound now. It is no longer just an animal outside. It is a reminder that the journey can continue tomorrow. It is proof that your little travelling world is still intact. A curious custom from the past is that many people use sounds as practical information before modern communication systems existed. The ringing of bells, calls from travellers, animal noises, and distant activity could reveal what was happening nearby. A person who lived close to the road learned to recognize patterns. A certain sound might mean a familiar trader was approaching. Another might warn of approaching weather or activity in the darkness. You think about how skilled people became at listening. Today, many sounds disappear beneath layers of technology. A person indoors may never know if rain has started unless an app announces it. Someone may not hear a horse approaching, a cart moving, or a person walking along a lane. Here, your ears are part of your survival. A change in the weather announces itself through sound. Heavy rain has a different rhythm from light rain. Wind against trees has different tones depending on direction and strength. A horse moving comfortably sounds different from a horse that is restless. The night teaches attention. You hear something outside, a small movement, perhaps a branch shifting, perhaps an animal passing through the hedge, perhaps only water running across the road. Your body becomes alert for a moment. That is natural. Sleeping beside a road means accepting that the outside world is close. There is no thick brick wall separating you from everything beyond the door. There is only timber, a latch, and the confidence built from experience. Then the sound fades. You relax again. The road has many voices, and not all of them belong to danger. A distant cart might pass. Someone might call to a companion. A dog might bark from a nearby farm. An owl might make itself known in the darkness. The countryside is not empty. It is simply quieter than the busy places people imagine when they think. They think of history. Researchers continue to explore how ordinary people experience sound in past landscapes because the written records often focus on visible events rather than everyday noises. We know about battles, laws, inventions, and famous figures. We know less about the daily soundscape of a person lying awake beside a muddy road, listening to rain on a wooden roof, but those sounds shaped lives. A traveller knew the difference between a normal creak and a troubling one. A farmer knew the sounds of animals on their land. A craftsperson knew the familiar noises of their tools. A family knew the particular footsteps of people approaching their home. Sound created a map. You imagine the road outside stretching through the darkness. Somewhere beyond the caravan, another person may be sleeping in a cottage, somewhere farther away. An inn may still have a candle burning. A night worker may be finishing a task. A guard may be walking. A horse may be carrying someone else through the rain. Everyone has their own small world surrounded by darkness. Your world is made of wood and blankets. The caravan moves slightly as the wind changes. The walls answer with gentle creaks. At first, these sounds might seem alarming. Now they are familiar. They are the sounds of shelter doing its work. The roof bends against the weather. The wheels hold their place. The wooden frame protects what is inside. You think about how many nights this caravan has experienced before yours. How many storms, how many markets, how many roads. How many people have fallen asleep while hearing the same mixture of rain, horse, and wood? A little sleepiness returns. The sounds outside begin blending together. The rain becomes softer. The horse's breathing becomes a slow rhythm. The occasional creak of the caravan becomes almost like a voice reassuring you that everything is where it should be. The road is still there. The weather is still there. The uncertainty of tomorrow is still there. But for this moment, you are sheltered. You do not need to know every sound. You do not need to understand every movement beyond the walls. You only need to listen long enough to realize that the night is not empty. It is alive. And as the darkness settles deeper over the English countryside, the horse caravan rests beside the road, holding you between the sounds of the natural world outside and the quiet warmth waiting within. The night grows colder, and the warmth inside the caravan becomes something you notice more carefully. At first, warmth simply felt like a relief. It was the opposite of the rain outside. It was the reason you could remove your wet coat and stop shivering. But now, lying quietly in the dim glow of the lantern, you begin to understand that warmth in a small wooden caravan is not automatic. It must be managed. Too little warmth and the cold finds you. Too much warmth and the air becomes heavy, smoky and uncomfortable. The same fire that welcomes you can also become a problem if treated carelessly. This is the delicate balance of staying comfortable in a travelling home. You look toward the small source of light and heat. It is not a modern heating system hidden behind walls. There are no vents quietly spreading warmth through the room. There is no simple adjustment that turns the temperature up or down. Instead, warmth comes from practical choices. A flame must be protected, fuel must be available, air must move through the space, and one must pay attention. A significant feature of 19th century domestic life was that many households depended on fires for cooking, heating, and lighting, making fuel a major part of daily routine. Coal, wood, peat, and other materials varied depending on location and income. Keeping a fire going was not just about comfort, it was part of managing everyday survival. Inside the caravan, every decision matters more because the space is so small. Smoke has nowhere to disappear quickly. Heat gathers quickly. A little mistake feels larger. A damp piece of fuel can turn a useful fire into a frustrating struggle. A blocked opening can make the air unpleasant. A careless movement near a flame can damage precious belongings. You think about how different this is from modern life, where warmth often arrives without much thought. A person today may enter a room and barely notice the system working around them. Here, the warmth has a visible source. You can see it, smell it, hear it. You can also respect it. The smell of smoke is everywhere. It clings to the wood, the blankets, and clothing. Some people might find it unpleasant, but it is also a familiar scent of safety. Smoke means there was a fire. A fire means there was warmth. Warmth means another uncomfortable night has been made manageable. A curious little detail from earlier travelling life is that smoke and fire often became closely associated with cleanliness and preservation. Not only cooking, smoke could help dry materials, discourage some insects, and preserve certain foods. The same smoky atmosphere that darkened walls and clothing was also connected to useful household practices. You glance at the wooden ceiling and imagine years of smoke slowly changing its colour. Each dark mark represents evenings like this one. A pot simmering, a coat drying, someone telling a story, someone repairing a tool, someone waiting for the weather to improve. The caravan carries these memories even if nobody wrote them down. Of course, comfort always has a price. The heat that dries your clothing can also make the air thick. The blanket that keeps you warm can become too heavy. The close walls that protect you from the wind can make every smell stronger. You begin to understand that 19th century comfort was often a matter of compromise. You do not achieve perfection, you achieve balance. You move the blanket slightly, you adjust your position, you make room for a little fresh air. You listen to the caravan and respond to what it needs. The building is not passive, it asks for cooperation. The same is true of every object around you. The lantern needs attention, the bedding needs care, the tools need protection, the horse needs feeding, the caravan itself needs maintenance. Nothing here simply exists in the background. A question frequently examined by historians is how people living with these conditions understood comfort itself. Did they experience their homes mainly as difficult and limiting? Or did they value the independence and familiarity these spaces provided? The answer changes depending on whose life is being considered. A cramped room can feel unbearable in one moment and deeply comforting in another. You can feel both at once. The caravan is small, the floor is hard, the air carries smoke, the walls offer little privacy, yet the rain is outside. That fact matters. You pull the blanket closer and listen to the weather beyond the wood. The storm cannot reach you in the same way anymore. It can make noise, it can shake branches, it can darken the road, but it cannot soak your clothes or chill your hands as easily. The caravan has done its job. There is another side to this warmth. Though fire safety is always a concern, a small space filled with cloth, wood, and dry materials requires care. A moment of distraction can have consequences. People living this way developed routines because routines reduced risk. Flames were watched. Materials were placed carefully. Sleep was often approached with awareness rather than complete carelessness. You imagine the final checks before resting, the flame reduced, the lantern positioned safely, loose items moved away from danger, the door secured, the horse checked once more. Only then could the body truly relax. It is easy to imagine the past as slower and simpler, but this moment reveals something different. Life may have moved at a slower pace, but attention was constantly required. People managed dozens of small responsibilities that modern systems often handle for us. The reward was not luxury, the reward was control. You knew where the warmth came from, you knew what it required, you knew how your choices affected your comfort. The lantern flickers softly, the smoke hangs lightly in the air. The caravan feels both fragile and strong. It is fragile because it is small and exposed. It is strong because it has carried people through countless difficult nights. Outside, the road disappears into darkness. Inside, the warmth remains. The horse breathes steadily. The rain continues. The wooden walls hold their ground. You settle into the strange comfort of a place that asks effort from you, but gives something precious in return. A little shelter, a little peace, a little warmth against a very large world. And as the night deepens, you begin to understand that comfort in an 1846 horse caravan was never about having everything you wanted. It was about making enough from what you had. The warmth of the caravan gives you comfort. But beyond the wooden walls, there is another reality of travelling life that cannot be ignored. The road does not belong to you. You may know your tools, your horse, your route, and your trade. But every new village brings a new set of eyes watching you arrive. Some people will be curious. Some will be friendly. Some will simply want to know who you are and why you have stopped nearby. A moving home creates a strange position. You are not completely without a place, because the caravan itself is your place. Yet to settled communities, you may appear temporary, you arrive, you see, leave, and you do not fit neatly into the familiar pattern of cottages, farms, and parish boundaries. You imagine waking tomorrow beside a village green or a roadside field, before you can sell anything, repair anything, or speak with anyone. People may already have noticed you. The shape of the caravan, the horse, the goods stored inside, the number of people travelling together. A traveller is often known before they introduce themselves. One important reality of the period was that local communities in 19th century Britain were often organised around parishes, where officials had responsibilities connected to poor relief, settlement, and local order. These systems created strong ideas about who belonged somewhere and who did not. A person arriving from elsewhere could attract attention simply because their connection to the area was uncertain. The same road that offered opportunity could also bring suspicion. You think about the small things people might notice: your accent, your clothing, your wagon, the way you earn money, whether you ask permission before stopping, whether someone in the village already knows your name. A friendly welcome might mean a good evening of trade and conversation. A colder reception might mean being watched closely or encouraged to move along quickly. The difference could be as simple as reputation. For many travelling workers, reputation was valuable. A good name could open doors. Someone who repaired tools well, sold honest goods, or behaved respectfully might be welcomed back. Someone accused of causing trouble could find every future stop more difficult. The road remembers. A curious detail from roadside communities is that local knowledge often travelled almost as quickly as the people themselves. Before modern communication, information moved through conversations, market gatherings, inns, churches, and neighbours speaking across fences. A traveller's arrival could become a topic of discussion before the kettle had even boiled. You can almost hear it. Who are they? Where did they come from? What do they sell? Have they been here before? The questions are not always cruel. Curiosity is a very human response to something unfamiliar. But curiosity mixed with fear can become suspicion, and suspicion can become exclusion. You settle deeper beneath the blanket and think about the balance required. You need villages. Villages have customers, supplies, repairs, and information. But you also need independence. The very reason you travel is because movement allows you to find opportunities. A settled shopkeeper has a doorway that stays in one place. You have a doorway that follows you. Researchers continue to examine how mobile workers and settled communities interacted in 19th century Britain because the relationship was rarely simple. Travellers were sometimes valued for their skills and services, while also being viewed with uncertainty because they did not follow ordinary patterns of residence. The same person could be welcomed as useful and questioned as unfamiliar. History often contains these contradictions. A person might repair a farmer's tools in the morning and be treated cautiously by that same village in the evening. Someone might buy goods from a travelling seller, while still believing old stereotypes about people who lived on the move. The road creates connections, but it also creates distance. You imagine the practical rules that come with stopping somewhere new. Where can the caravan stand? Is there enough space for the horse? Is water available nearby? Will the landowner object? Is there a market happening soon? Is there a place to dispose of waste properly? Will the weather make the ground impossible to leave tomorrow? Every stop requires negotiation. The idea of simply pulling over wherever you like belongs more to modern imagination than to historical reality. Land was owned, roads had rules, villages had expectations. Travellers had to understand the invisible boundaries around them. A person skilled at reading people could often make the difference between a peaceful stay and an uncomfortable one. A smile helped. Polite conversation helped. Useful skills help most of all. You picture a travelling craftsperson arriving at a farm with a damaged item that needs repair. The farmer may not care about whether workers slept last night. The farmer cares whether the job can be done properly. Practical value could sometimes overcome social distance. That is one reason travelling trades remained important. The countryside needed services that were not available everywhere. A skilled person carrying tools could provide something a small village might not have permanently. Mobility filled gaps. The caravan was not only a sign of difference, it was also a sign of usefulness. Outside, the rain begins again, softer than before. You listen and think about all the people who passed along roads like this. Some were welcomed, some were ignored, some were remembered, some disappeared into history without leaving written records. Their lives were often recorded only when officials noticed them, when laws affected them, or when someone with education decided to write about them. But ordinary moments mattered too. A conversation beside a caravan door, a purchase at a market stall, a repaired tool returned to a farmer, a child watching the wheels arrive and wondering where they would go next. These small encounters connected moving people with settled communities. You look around your wooden shelter and understand something important. The caravan gives you freedom, but freedom is never completely separate from the world around it. You depend on roads, customers, landowners, neighbours, and strangers. The road may carry you forward, but other people determine how easy that journey becomes as the night continues. The village beyond the rain feels distant. Tomorrow, there will be another arrival, another introduction, another moment when a door opens and someone decides whether to welcome you. For now, though, the caravan remains your quiet refuge. The outside world may question you. The road may challenge you. But inside these wooden walls, your tools are safe, your horse is resting, and your small travelling home waits patiently for morning. The night has arrived fully now, but sleep does not come immediately. A traveller's day does not end simply because the sun disappears. There are still small tasks waiting in the quiet, before the blankets become a bed and the caravan becomes completely still. There are things to repair, arrange, and prepare. The road demands preparation. You sit in the lantern glow and look at the objects around you. During the day, each item had a purpose. now, before rest. Each one must be checked. A tool left in the wrong place can be difficult to find tomorrow. A damp garment forgotten in a corner may become colder and heavier by morning. A loose strap can become a problem when the horse is harnessed again. The evening is not finished until everything is ready. This is one of the hidden rhythms of travelling life. Much of the work happens in quiet moments that rarely appear in grand stories. There are no crowds watching, no celebrations, no dramatic announcements, just someone making sure tomorrow begins a little more smoothly than today ended. You take a moment to inspect the caravan. The floor is cleared as much as possible. Supplies are returned to their places. The cups are secured. The tools are arranged. The blankets are folded and prepared. Every action is familiar because it has been repeated many times. A well-documented aspect of 19th century working life is that many people spent their evenings completing household tasks after their main workday had ended. Repairing clothing, maintaining equipment, preparing food, and organising supplies were essential parts of daily survival, especially for those with limited money and few replacements available. Rest often came after another round of effort. You pick up a piece of clothing that needs attention. Perhaps a loose thread needs fixing. Perhaps a small tear has appeared from another day of movement and work. A needle and thread become important tools. A few minutes of repair can extend the life of an item for months. There is a certain patience required. Nothing is immediately replaced. A broken object is examined. A damaged item is repaired. A worn possession is adapted. The goal is not perfection. The goal is usefulness. A fascinating detail from everyday 19th century life is that many people developed strong habits of repair and reuse because materials were costly compared with modern expectations. Small scraps of fabric, pieces of leather, and leftover materials could be saved because they might become valuable later. What looked like clutter to one person could represent future solutions to another. Inside the caravan, almost nothing is truly useless. A piece of cord might secure a bundle tomorrow. A small piece of wood might repair something. An old cloth might become a cleaning rag. A worn item may begin a second life in a different form. The caravan teaches you to see potential everywhere. You check the small collection of coins earned from the day. They're counted carefully, not because the amount is impressive, but because every coin has a purpose: food, feed for the horse, necessary materials, repairs, future travel. Money on the road is always connected to uncertainty. A busy market can bring good earnings, a rainy day can bring very little. A broken tool can suddenly create an expense. A quiet week can make every small purchase feel important. The question of how much independence travelling workers truly enjoyed remains debated among historians because mobility could bring both opportunity and insecurity. Moving from place to place allowed some people to find customers and avoid certain limitations of settled life, while also leaving them vulnerable to weather, reputation, and changing local attitudes. Freedom and uncertainty often travelled together. You understand this while sitting inside the caravan. The road has given you possibilities, but it has also given you responsibilities. You prepare the horse's final needs as well. The animal has worked all day, and tomorrow it will work again. Feed is checked. Water is considered. The harness is placed where it can be reached easily. These routines are not separate from your own rest. They are part of it. A traveller cannot truly sleep while knowing important tasks have been ignored. You think about the difference between modern bedtime routines and this one. Today, a person might brush their teeth, set an alarm, and climb into bed. Here, preparing for sleep is closer to closing down a small business. The caravan must be made ready. The household must be protected. The future must be organised. Outside, the road has become quiet. Perhaps an inn nearby still has conversation inside. Perhaps a farm dog occasionally breaks the silence. Perhaps another traveller is settling into another small shelter somewhere beyond the fields. Everyone is preparing for morning in their own way. You imagine another caravan a few miles away. Someone counting supplies, someone drying clothes, someone telling a child to stop moving around and finally sleep, someone checking the weather one last time before closing the door. different people, similar routines. The small acts that prepare people for tomorrow are often the ones that connect us across centuries. Researchers studying ordinary life in the past often focus more attention now on these everyday habits because they reveal how people actually experienced history. Grand events changed the world, but routines helped people survive those changes. A repaired coat, a counted coin, a clean tool, a fed horse, a prepared sleeping space. These are small actions, but they form the structure of daily existence. The lantern flame becomes weaker. You place the last items in their proper places. The caravan finally feels ready to rest. The work is complete, the horse is settled, the supplies are protected, the blankets are waiting. You take one final look around the little wooden room. It is still cramped, it is still smoky, it is still far from the comfortable bedrooms many people imagine when they think of home. But it is organized, it is familiar, it belongs to you for this night. The rain continues beyond the walls, but inside, the day's responsibilities have been carefully packed away. The tools are quiet, the coins are counted, the clothing is ready. The caravan has been prepared to carry you into another morning. And now, finally, sleep can begin to approach. The caravan is finally still, not completely silent. Because a travelling home is never completely silent. The wood remembers the weather. The horse breathes nearby. The rain continues its gentle tapping above you. But the movement of the day has ended, and the little room has settled into its nighttime shape. You close your eyes. At first, sleep does not arrive all at once. It approaches slowly, the way mist moves across a field. Thoughts from the day drift through your mind. The road you travelled, the people you met, the places you passed, the sound of wheels turning through mud, the smell of wet grass and smoke. The caravan becomes a small world between waking and dreaming. You feel the weight of the blanket. You notice the hard surface beneath you. You hear the occasional drip from somewhere above. The roof is mostly doing its job, but rain has a talent for discovering tiny weaknesses. A drop lands, then another. A small reminder that even shelter requires patience. You almost laugh. After all the careful work of drying clothes, arranging supplies, and preparing for rest, the weather still finds a way to join you. But perhaps that is part of the charm of this place. The caravan does not pretend to separate you completely from nature. It places you close enough to hear the storm, while keeping you protected from the worst of it. A notable aspect of 19th century travel was that many people experienced a much closer relationship with the natural world than many people do today. Weather affected work, movement, food supplies, and daily plans directly. A storm was not just something to watch through a window. It could decide whether a journey continued or stopped. You think about tomorrow. The road ahead may be muddy. The next village may be welcoming or uncertain. The horse may walk easily, or the weather may slow everything down. The future is always slightly unclear. When your home moves with you, that uncertainty follows you into sleep. Your dreams begin with movement. You see the road stretching ahead beneath a grey sky. The caravan rolls slowly between fields and hedges. The wheels leave marks in the mud behind you, temporary signs of a passing life. Soon the rain will erase them. A curious little tradition connected with travelling communities is the importance of storytelling during long journeys and quiet evenings. Stories, songs, memories, and family tales helped preserve knowledge and create connection when people were constantly moving. A person might carry history not in books, but in words repeated beside a fire or beneath a caravan roof. You imagine those voices around you, someone describing a previous journey, someone remembering a strange customer at a market, someone laughing about a mistake made years earlier, someone telling a story so familiar that everyone already knows the ending but listens anyway. These are the histories that often disappear, not because they were unimportant, because they were rarely written down. The caravan becomes a place where memory lives. Every journey adds another layer. Every person who sleeps inside contributes another story. The wood may not speak, but it carries evidence of use, scratches, repairs, darkened areas where hands have touched the same places again and again. You drift deeper into sleep. The sounds outside change. The rain becomes softer. The horse shifts once and then settles. The wind moves through the trees with a distant whisper. Your dreams become less about the road itself and more about the feeling of belonging somewhere. This is a strange thing about travelling home. It moves constantly, yet it can still feel familiar. The location changes, but the interior remains recognisable. The same blanket, the same tools, the same cup, the same wooden walls. The outside world changes, the inside world continues. The question of how mobile families created a sense of home has attracted growing interest among researchers because traditional ideas of home often focus on permanent buildings. Yet many people throughout history have created belonging through objects, routines, relationships, and shared experiences rather than through a fixed address. A home does not always stand still. Sometimes it follows the road. In your dream, the caravan travels through different landscapes. You pass villages where smoke rises from chimneys. You cross open fields where the wind moves through tall grass. You stop beside markets filled with voices and colours. Everywhere, the caravan remains the same. The little room protects its secrets. The blankets still smell familiar. The tools still hang in their places. The horse still knows the rhythm of travel. You wake briefly in the middle of the night. For a moment, you're unsure where you are. Then you hear the rain. You feel the wooden wall beside you. You remember the caravan, the road, the year 1846. The feeling is unusual. In many homes, waking during the night means returning to silence and stillness. Here, waking reminds you that you are somewhere temporary but familiar. A small leak continues nearby. The horse breathes outside. The lantern has been lowered, leaving only a faint glow. You consider the strange comfort of this. The caravan is imperfect. It creaks, it leaks, it shifts, it requires work. Yet it has carried you through the day and given you a place to rest. There is something deeply human about accepting imperfect shelter across history. People have found comfort in places that were not ideal but were theirs for a moment. A tent, a cottage, a ship's cabin, a rented room, a wooden caravan beside a rainy English road. Comfort often comes not from having everything, but from having enough. You close your eyes again. The dream returns. The road continues. The horse walks steadily. The rain falls gently. The caravan rolls onward through the darkness, carrying not only goods and tools, but memories, hopes, worries, and ordinary human lives. And as sleep takes you fully, the little wooden room remains exactly what it has always been: a shelter, a workplace, a home, a moving piece of the past quietly resting beneath the rain. Morning arrives quietly, not with an alarm clock, not with bright electric light, not with the sudden beginning of a schedule created by machines. It arrives through small changes. The darkness outside the caravan slowly becomes a softer shade of grey. The rain has weakened, leaving only occasional drops sliding from the roof. The horse begins to stir before you fully wake, shifting its weight and reminding you that the new day has already started for at least one member of the travelling household. You open your eyes slowly. For a moment, you forget where you are. Then you feel the wooden wall beside you. You hear the familiar sounds of the caravan. You smell smoke, wool, damp earth, and the faint remains of yesterday's meal. The memories return. You're beside an English road in 1846. The bed is a bench covered with blankets. The ceiling is curved wood. The morning routine is waiting. Before the sun fully rises, there is work to do. This is one of the quiet truths of life before modern conveniences. Many people began their days earlier because tasks could not always be delayed. Animals needed attention. Fires needed preparing, food needed organising, travel needed planning. The day often started with responsibility before comfort. You sit up carefully, feeling the stiffness in your shoulders and back. The body notices the difference between a modern mattress and a practical sleeping arrangement. The caravan gave you shelter, but it did not remove every inconvenience. You probably miss your soft bed already. The horse, if it could comment, would likely remind you that it walked all day yesterday while you complained about a wooden bench. Fair enough. You move through the familiar routine of waking. The blankets are folded away. The sleeping space slowly disappears, becoming a working space again. Objects return to their daytime positions. The caravan changes once more, transforming from bedroom into the place where the next journey begins. This transformation feels almost like watching a small performance. Nothing is wasted. A blanket becomes storage, a box becomes a seat, a shelf becomes a work area. A corner becomes a place for supplies. The caravan is constantly adjusting to the needs of the people inside it. Life in this period was shaped by the fact that many households depended on careful planning because resources were limited. Food, fuel, clothing, and tools were valuable, and poor organisation could create unnecessary hardship. Preparation was not simply a habit, it was a form of protection. You step outside and meet the morning air. The landscape looks different from the night before. Darkness hid the details. Now the road returns. The hedges appear again. The fields stretch away beneath a cloudy sky. Water shines on leaves and grass. The world looks freshly washed. Although the mud under your boots suggests the weather has left a final opinion behind, the horse waits patiently. You check on the animal first. The morning begins with practical care. Food, water, harness, a quick look for anything unusual. The horse is not just part of the journey. The horse is the reason the journey can happen. You notice how much calmer the world feels at this hour. Villages are beginning to wake. Smoke may rise from chimneys. Doors may open. Someone may already be preparing breakfast somewhere nearby. Another worker is beginning a completely different version of the same morning. A small curiosity from everyday rural life is that early rising was often linked to practical needs rather than personal preference. Farmers, workers, traders, and travellers commonly organised their schedules around daylight because artificial lighting was limited and expensive. The sun was not just a source of light, it was part of the daily timetable. You understand this while standing beside the caravan. The morning does not ask whether you feel ready. It simply begins. You prepare the things needed for movement. Supplies are checked. The interior is arranged. Anything loose is secure because roads are not gentle. A smooth journey can quickly become a shaking, bouncing test of every knot and container. The caravan waits patiently while you work. There is a rhythm to these actions. Lift, fold, tie, check, repeat. The routine is almost calming. The modern world often separates preparation from travel. You pack before a journey, then travel. Here, preparation is part of travel itself. Every morning contains a small ceremony of rebuilding your mobile life. The road ahead is unknown. Perhaps the next stop will bring good business. Perhaps the weather will improve. Perhaps the village ahead will welcome you. Perhaps it will not. The uncertainty remains. The interpretation of travelling life during this era continues to be examined because historians have different views on how much choice people truly had when they lived on the move. Some emphasise economic pressure and limited opportunities, while others highlight skill, independence, and the ability to create a living outside traditional structures. The truth may be found somewhere between those ideas. A person can struggle and still value their freedom. A person can face hardship and still feel pride. You look back at the caravan before leaving the resting place. In the grey morning light, it appears smaller than it did last night. Without the lantern glow and warmth inside, it looks like a simple wooden structure beside a road. But you know better. You know what it contains. Tools, clothing, food, memories, a place to sleep, a place to work. a place where yesterday ended and today begins. The horse shifts slightly, ready for movement. The wheels wait. The road stretches ahead. The last drop of rain falls from the roof. Soon the caravan will become a travelling home again, carrying you toward the next village, the next market, and the next uncertain welcome. You climb inside one more time to collect the final items. The wooden walls surround you briefly. The smell of smoke and wool returns. The familiar objects are all in their places. For a moment, the caravan feels like it is holding its breath. Then the day begins. The horse moves. The wheels turn and the little home on the road starts forward once again. The morning is not a fresh beginning in the way modern travel advertisements like to imagine. There is no perfect sunrise, no smooth departure, no magical moment where everything has packed itself and the road politely clears ahead. There is work. The caravan must be prepared to move. The rain has left the ground soft and uneven. The wheels sit in damp earth. The horse waits nearby, already aware that the quiet morning is about to become another day of pulling, stopping, starting, and adjusting. You begin the familiar process of breaking camp. It is almost the opposite of arriving. When you stop for the night, the caravan slowly expands into a small living space. Blankets come out, tools are used, food is prepared, objects leave their travel positions and become part of daily life. Now everything must return. The blanket becomes a folded bundle. The cup returns to its place. The tools are secured. The supplies are checked. Every item must survive another day of movement. A loose object inside a stationary room is harmless. The same object inside a moving caravan can become a problem. The road does not forgive poor preparation. You tighten a strap and feel the damp leather beneath your fingers. The material has absorbed moisture from the night, but it remains strong because it has been cared for. This is the quiet skill of travelling life. Maintenance is not an occasional task, it is part of every day. A well-known feature of 19th century travel was that journeys depended heavily on preparation because transport systems would be vulnerable to weather, road conditions, and equipment problems. Before modern vehicles and paved highways, a traveller had to understand the condition of wheels, animals, supplies, and routes. The journey was shaped as much by preparation as by distance. You look at the muddy road ahead. Yesterday, it was simply a road. Today, it is an obstacle to consider. The rain has changed its character. Small puddles have become deeper patches of water. Soft ground may catch the wheels. Slopes that seemed harmless yesterday may require patience and careful movement. The countryside is beautiful, but beauty does not make travel easier. You step around the caravan, checking the places where problems usually appear. The wheels, the harness, the connection between horse and vehicle, the areas where water collects. The process is careful and methodical. A curious practice from working life on the road was that travellers often developed their own personal systems for organising departure. Some had specific ways of packing goods, arranging tools, or preparing animals because a familiar routine reduced mistakes. In a world without quick replacements or easy repairs, organisation could save time, money, and unnecessary trouble. You can understand why, when everything you own is carried with you, every misplaced item matters. You finish securing the inside of the caravan and step outside again. The horse looks toward the road, perhaps impatient, perhaps simply ready. Animals have their own sense of time. They do not worry about schedules or destinations in the same way people do. They know movement. They know stopping. They know the rhythm. You prepare the harness carefully. The leather straps sit into place. The metal fittings are checked. The connection between your home and the animal that pulls it must be reliable. There is a quiet moment before departure. The campsite, if it can even be called that, is returning to ordinary countryside. A few marks in the mud remain. A flattened patch of grass, perhaps a small trace of where the caravan stood. Then the weather begins to erase the evidence. One of the remarkable things about travelling this way is how temporary everything becomes. You arrive, you live there briefly, you leave, the landscape closes behind you. Researchers continue to study how mobile communities balance movement with the need for temporary places to stop, because the idea of home becomes more complicated when a person does not remain in one location. A fixed building is easy to identify as a home, but a travelling household creates home through routine, objects, relationships, and repeated actions. You look at the caravan and see all of those things. The home is not the patch of ground beneath the wheels. The home is what moves away from it. You climb onto the step and take one final look around. The sleeping area has disappeared. The working space has returned. The caravan is ready for another day of purpose. Outside, the road waits. You guide the horse forward. The first movement is always noticeable. The wheels resist slightly as they leave the soft ground. The horse leans into the effort. The caravan responds with a familiar creak. Then you are moving. The place where you slept becomes part of yesterday. Behind you, the rain continues to fall gently. Ahead, the road disappears between hedges and fields. There is something strangely peaceful about leaving without leaving much behind. Modern travel often involves bags, buildings, tickets, and fixed destinations. Here, departure means carrying your entire world forward. You take the weather with you. You take your tools with you. You take your memories with you. The road becomes your connection between places as the caravan moves. You notice the small details of the journey beginning again. The rhythm of the wheels, the movement of the horse, the changing landscape outside the window. A cottage appears and disappears. A field opens beside the lane. A distant church tower rises above the trees. Each place offers a glimpse before the road carries you onward. You think about the campsite behind you. It is already becoming difficult to imagine. The sounds of last night feel distant. The warmth of the caravan remains. But the location has changed. That is the strange experience of travelling home. The place moves. The feeling remains. The horse continues forward through the damp morning. The wheels turn through the mud. The caravan sways gently behind. The road may be difficult, the weather may be uncertain, the next welcome may not be guaranteed, but the little home on wheels is moving again, carrying everything needed for another day. And as the rain fades into the background, you settle into the familiar rhythm of travel, knowing that the journey itself is not simply the space between places, it is where life happens. The road carries you onward. The caravan moves steadily through the damp morning, wheels turning over the uneven surface, the horse finding its rhythm with each step. The rain has become lighter now, but the landscape still carries the memory of the storm. Grass bends under drops of water. The hedges shine. The road is dark and soft beneath the wheels. Ahead lies the next market. For a travelling household, a market is more than a destination. It is an opportunity. It is where goods change hands. News spreads, repairs are requested, and familiar faces may appear again after weeks or months apart. You feel the caravan shift gently behind the horse and think about how much depends on arriving at the right place at the right time. A market day can change the mood of an entire journey. A quiet road can suddenly become a gathering place. Farmers arrive with produce, traders arrange their goods, customers search for useful items, children move through the crowd, conversations overlap. The smell of food, animals, smoke and wet clothing fills the air. After the silence of the night beside the road, the noise will feel almost overwhelming. But this is where travelling life finds its purpose. A significant part of 19th century economic life was the importance of local markets, fairs, and small exchanges, especially in communities where people bought and sold goods outside larger commercial centres. Before modern shopping systems, Regular markets were essential meeting points where rural communities traded, gathered information, and maintained connections. You understand why the road leads towards them. A skilled traveller does not simply wander without direction. Routes often follow opportunity. A fair in one town, a market in another. A season when particular goods are needed. A place where a certain repair might earn a few coins. Movement has a pattern. You pass fields where workers are already beginning their tasks. A person in a cottage doorway watches the caravan pass. A dog follows the wheels for a moment before losing interest. The countryside slowly wakes around you. The horse continues at a steady pace. You notice how the caravan becomes part of the landscape. It is unusual enough to attract attention, but familiar enough that people understand what it represents. A moving home, a moving business, a moving connection between places. A lesser-known detail about travelling sellers and craftspeople is that many relied on personal relationships and repeated visits rather than random chance. Returning to the same villages and markets could build trust over time. Customers remembered good work. Travellers remembered helpful places to stop. A reputation could become as valuable as any tool carried inside the beacon. The road was not just a path, it was a network of relationships. You imagine arriving at the market later that morning. The caravan stops near other traders. The horse is unhitched and cared for. Goods are displayed. Tools are arranged. The small wooden room that served as your bedroom last night becomes a place of business again. The transformation is almost magical. A blanket disappears, a shelf becomes a display, a box becomes a counter. A private space becomes a public one. The caravan adjusts once again. You think about the people who might approach. Someone needing a repair, someone curious about goods, someone simply wanting to hear news from another village. Travellers often carried more than objects, they carried stories. Before newspapers reached everyone regularly and before modern communication connected distant communities instantly. People on the move helped spread information. They knew which roads were difficult, which towns were busy, which fairs were successful, and which places offered opportunities. The road itself became a form of communication. There is ongoing discussion among researchers about how much influence mobile workers had in shaping local economies and spreading information in rural areas. Some historians emphasize their economic importance, while others note that official records often overlooked informal exchanges and everyday networks. The truth is difficult to measure because much of this activity happened quietly. A conversation beside a caravan, a small repair completed, a few coins exchanged, a piece of news carried from one village to another. These moments rarely created documents, but they shaped ordinary life. The market ahead begins to announce itself before you see it. The sound arrives first. Voices, animals, movement, the distant rhythm of people gathering. You feel the horse respond slightly to the change in atmosphere. The road becomes busier. Other travellers appear. Carts pass. People walk with baskets and bundles. The quiet lane becomes a route filled with purpose. You are no longer alone. The caravan joins the larger movement of the day. There is excitement in this, but also pressure. A market is an opportunity only if people are interested in what you offer. A good location matters, timing matters, weather matters, the number of customers matters. A rainy morning may keep some people away. A sunny afternoon may bring a crowd. Success is never guaranteed. That uncertainty is part of travelling life. You have the freedom to move toward opportunity, but you also carry the risk of every decision. A settled shopkeeper knows where customers can find them. A traveller must find customers again and again. The caravan rolls closer to the market. The horse steps carefully. The wheels turn at the familiar sounds of movements around you. Soon, the door will open, the work will begin. The quiet sleeping place will become a busy space filled with conversation, trade, and activity. But before that happens, you take one last moment to appreciate the journey itself. The road has carried you through rain, darkness, and uncertainty. It has tested your patience and your preparation. It has also given you something valuable, a view of the world changing 1 mile at a time. From inside this small horse caravan, you have seen how people live between places. You have felt how a home could travel. You have understood that movement was not simply a lack of belonging. Sometimes, movement was the way people belonged. The market grows closer, the day opens ahead, and the caravan continues forward, carrying a horse, a livelihood, and a small wooden world into another chapter of the road. The market day has passed into memory, and the road feels quieter again. The caravan has carried you through another stretch of countryside, another set of faces, another collection of small moments that most people would never think to record. A sale here, a conversation there, a repair completed, a meal shared, a night spent listening to rain against wooden boards. From the outside, the life of a horse caravan can appear wonderfully simple, a home that travels, a life without walls holding you in one place, a connection to the open countryside. But as you settle into the rhythm of the road, you begin to understand the hidden cost behind that freedom. Every comfort has been earned, every mile has required effort. The caravan gives you movement, but movement demands something in return. Your body feels it first. Walking beside the road, loading supplies, repairing equipment, caring for the horse, setting up and packing away the living space again and again. These tasks become part of the ordinary rhythm of life. A common feature of the period was that many working people performed long hours of physical labour because survival depended directly on their effort. Before many modern conveniences reduced household work, daily life required constant attention to food, clothing, transport, heating, and repairs. The past was not always slower. Often, it was simply more physical. You think back to the nights inside the caravan, the bench that became a bed, the blanket that carried the smell of smoke, the small cooking space where every movement had to be planned, the tools that had to be protected because replacing them was not easy. Each detail reveals the same truth. The caravan was clever, but it was not effortless. You begin to notice the things that are missing. There is little privacy. Personal space is limited. Weather controls your plans. Income depends on customers appearing. A damaged wheel or sick horse can turn an ordinary day into a crisis. The road offers independence, but independence can be demanding. A lesser-known detail about travelling workers is that their lives were often shaped by seasonal patterns. Work opportunities change with fairs, agricultural cycles, local demand, and weather conditions. A person who earned well during one period might face uncertainty later. The road provided possibilities, but it also required constant adaptation. You imagine carrying that uncertainty every day. Would the next village welcome you? Would customers appear? Would the weather cooperate? Would the horse remain healthy? These questions follow you like shadows, yet there is another side to the story. The caravan also offers things that many settled people might envy. You are not tied to one landlord. You can seek better opportunities elsewhere. You know the landscape beyond one small village. You meet people from different places. Your skills travel with you. The road can be difficult and still be meaningful. The evidence leaves historians divided over how people living mobile lives understood their own position. Some descriptions emphasize hardship, poverty, and exclusion, while others reveal pride, skill, independence, and strong community connections. A travelling life was not one single experience shared by everyone. A wealthy observer seeing a cramped caravan might focus on what is missing. The person inside might focus on what it provides. Both perspectives tell part of the story. You look around the caravan again, the walls are close, the ceiling is low, the storage is limited. But every object has a purpose. Every tool represents ability. Every repair represents knowledge. Every journey represents experience. There is dignity here, Not the grand dignity shown in portraits or official records. A quieter kind, the dignity of knowing how to solve problems, the dignity of maintaining what you own, the dignity of creating a home wherever you stop. The road also changes relationships. When space is limited, people must learn patience. A family travelling together cannot escape one another easily. Everyone contributes, everyone notices moods, everyone shares the difficulties and rewards. A single good day belongs to everyone. A difficult day affects everyone. The caravan becomes a small society of its own. You imagine evenings when stories were exchanged after work was finished. Someone remembering a previous journey. Someone laughing about a mistake. Someone teaching a younger person a skill that had been passed down through generations. These moments created belonging. Not through a building, through people. An unexpected glimpse into daily life comes from the way travellers preserved identity through objects and routines. A familiar tool, a repeated route, a traditional meal, or a particular way of arranging the caravan could provide continuity even when the surroundings changed constantly. The world outside moved. The inside remained recognisable. That may be the greatest achievement of the caravan. It turns uncertainty into routine, it turns travel into home. Of course, modern eyes may still struggle with the hardships, the cold mornings, the uncomfortable sleeping arrangements, the constant maintenance, the lack of easy access to medical care, the dependence on weather and physical strength. There is a temptation to imagine the past as either romantic or miserable, but ordinary life was usually both. The same rain that made the road difficult also created the green landscapes people admired. The same small space that limited privacy also kept a family together during a storm. The same mobility that created uncertainty also allowed people to search for opportunity. Life rarely fits into a single description. You understand this as the caravan moves onward. The journey was not only about reaching the next market or finding the next place to stop, it was about managing the endless balance between freedom and responsibility, between movement and rest, between independence and vulnerability. The horse continues walking, the wheels continue turning, the wooden walls continue carrying the signs of every road they have known, and somewhere between the difficult moments and the peaceful ones, you discover what sleeping in an 1846 England horse caravan truly meant. It meant accepting less comfort while finding deeper familiarity. It meant working harder for simple things. It meant building a home from patience, skill, and determination. It meant living close to the world outside, the rain, the fields, the roads, the people, the changing seasons, the endless movement of life itself. The final glow inside the caravan is softer than before. The journey has carried you through rain, markets, muddy lanes, uncertain welcomes, and quiet nights beside the road. You have felt the cramped corners, the careful routines, and the constant work required to keep a moving home alive. Now, the caravan feels almost peaceful, not because the difficulties have disappeared. They have simply become familiar. The wooden walls no longer seem like a barrier between you and the world. They feel like old companions. The marks in the timber, the worn edges of shelves, the smell of smoke, and the familiar creaks all tell the story of countless evenings like this one. A home does not always become meaningful because it is perfect. Sometimes it becomes meaningful because it has protected you. You settle beneath the blanket and listen to the quiet sounds around you. The horse rests outside. The road has grown still. The rain has returned to a gentle whisper, tapping against the roof like a careful visitor who does not want to disturb anyone. For a moment, you think about everything this small caravan represents. It is a vehicle, but also a bedroom. It is a workplace, but also a refuge. It is a storage space, but also a place filled with memories. During the 1840s, Britain was changing rapidly. Industrial growth, expanding railways, and increasing urbanisation were transforming how many people lived and worked. Yet older ways of travelling, trading, and earning a living continued alongside these changes. The world was not replaced overnight. New systems arrived while traditional routines continued. This caravan belongs to that meeting point between old and new. The railway may have been changing travel, but the horse still mattered. Factories may have been growing, but small trades still existed. Cities may have expanded, but roads remained full of people moving through the countryside. You imagine all the journeys this caravan could have witnessed? Different seasons, different landscapes, different voices. Perhaps one year brought busy markets and good earnings, another brought difficult weather and uncertain times. The caravan carried all of it. A small curiosity from travelling life is that some families and workers develop strong emotional connections to particular routes, stopping places, and familiar landscapes. A bend in a road, a certain field, or a welcoming household could become part of personal memory. For someone always moving, familiar places became landmarks of belonging. A fixed address was not the only way to know where you belonged. You could belong through experience, through people, through places remembered, through the objects that have travelled with you. You look around the caravan one